Chapter 15. A few days later, they were walking carefree together through an old oak thicket on the far side of the meadow. They had to cross the meadow in order to reach their old trail where the tall oak stood. As the bushes grew thinner around them, they stopped and peered out. Something red was moving near the oak. Both of them looked at it. "Who can it be?" whispered Bambi. "Probably Rono or Karis," said Fallon. Bambi doubted it. "They don't dare come near me anymore," Bambi said, peering sharply ahead. "No," he decided. "That's not Karis or Rono. It's a stranger." Fallon agreed, surprised and very curious. "Yes," she said, "it's a stranger. I see it too now. How curious." They watched him. "How carelessly he acts," exclaimed Fallon. "Stupid," said Bambi. "Really stupid. He acts like a little child, as if there's no danger." "Let's go over," Fallon proposed. Her curiosity was getting the better of her. "All right," Bambi answered. "Let's go. I want to have a better look at the fellow." They took a few steps, and then Fallon stopped. "Suppose he wants to fight you," she said. "He's strong." "Bah," said Bambi, holding his head cocked and putting on a disdainful air. "Look at the little antlers he has. Should I be afraid of that? The fellow is fat and sleek. But is he strong? I don't think so. Come along." They went on. The stranger was busy nibbling meadow grass and did not notice them until they were a good way across the meadow. Then he ran forward to meet them. He gave joyful, playful skips that made a curiously childish impression. Bambi and Fallon stopped, surprised, and waited for him. When he was a few steps off, he stood still. After a while, he asked, "Don't you know me?" Bambi had lowered his head, prepared for battle. "Do you know us?" he retorted. The stranger interrupted him. "Bambi," he cried reproachably, yet confidently. Bambi was startled to hear his name. The sound of that voice stirred an old memory in his heart, but Fallon had rushed towards the stranger. "Gobo!" she cried and became speechless. She stood there silent, without moving. She couldn't breathe. "Fallon," said Gobo softly. "Fallon, sister, you knew me anyway." He went to her and kissed her mouth. The tears were running down his cheeks. Fallon was crying too and couldn't speak. "Well, Gobo," Bambi began. His voice trembled and he felt very bewildered. He was deeply moved and very much surprised. "Well, so, you're not dead?" he said. Gobo burst out laughing. "You see that I'm not dead," he said. "At least I think you can see that I'm not." "But what happened that time in the snow?" Bambi persisted. "Oh, then?" Gobo thought. "He rescued me then." "And where have you been all this time?" asked Fallon in astonishment. "With him," Gobo said. "I've been with him all this time." He grew silent and looked at Fallon and at Bambi. Their helpless astonishment delighted him. Then he added, "Yes, my dears, I've seen a lot more than all of you put together in your old forest." He sounded somewhat boastful, but they paid no attention to it. They were still too much absorbed in their great surprise. "Tell us about it," cried Fallon, beside herself with joy. "Oh," said Gobo with satisfaction, "I could talk all day about it and never reach the end." "Well, then go ahead and talk," Bambi urged. Gobo turned to Fallon and grew serious. "Is Mother still alive?" he asked timidly and softly. "Yes," cried Fallon gladly. "She's alive, but I haven't seen her for a long while." "I'm going to see her right away," said Gobo with decision. "Are you coming too?" They all went. They did not speak another word the whole way. Bambi and Fallon felt Gobo's impatient longing to see his mother, so both of them kept silent. Gobo walked ahead hurriedly and did not speak. They let him do as he liked. Only sometimes when he hurried blindly over a crossing trail, or when in a sudden burst of speed he took the wrong turning, they called gently to him. "This way," Bambi would whisper, or Fallon would say, No, we go this way now." A number of times they had to cross wide clearings. They noticed that Gobo never stopped at the edge of the thicket, never peered around for a moment when he walked. into the open, but simply ran out without any precaution. Bambi and Fallon exchanged astonished glances whenever this happened, but they never said a word and followed Gobbo with some hesitation. They had to wander around some time and search high and low. Gobbo recollected his childhood paths at once. He was delighted with himself, never realizing that Bambi and Fallon were leading him. He looked around at them and called, "How do you like the way I can still find my way around?" They did not say anything, but they exchanged glances again. Soon afterwards, they came to a small, leafy hollow. "Look," cried Fallon, and glided in. Gobbo followed her and stopped. It was the glade in which they were both born, and had lived with their mother as children. Gobbo and Fallon looked into each other's eyes. They did not say a word, but Fallon kissed her brother gently on the mouth. Then they hurried on. They walked to and fro for a good hour. The sun shone brighter and brighter, though the branches in the forest grew stiller and stiller. It was the time for lying down and resting, but Gobbo didn't feel tired. He walked swiftly ahead, breathing deeply and with impatience and excitement, and gazed aimlessly about him. He shrank together whenever a weasel slunk through the bushes at his feet. He nearly stepped on the pheasants, and when they scolded him, flying up with loud flapping wings, he was terribly frightened. Bambi marveled at the strange, blind way Gobbo moved around. Presently, Gobbo stopped and turned to them both. "She isn't anywhere," he cried in despair. Fallon soothed him. "We'll soon find her," she said. Deeply moved, "Soon, Gobbo." She looked at him. She still had the dejected look she knew so well. "Shall we call her?" she asked, smiling. "Shall we call her the way we used to when we were children?" Bambi went away a few steps. Then he saw Aunt Tina. She had already settled herself and was resting and lying quietly in a nearby hazel bush. "At last," he said to himself. At the same moment, Gobbo and Fallon came up. All three of them stood together and looked at Anna. She had raised her head quietly and looked sleepily back at them. Gobbo took a few hesitating steps and cried softly, "Mother!" She was on her feet in a flash and stood as though transfixed. Gobbo sprang to her quickly. "Mother," he began again. He tried to speak but couldn't utter a single other word. His mother looked deeply into his eyes. Her rigid body moved quickly. Wave after wave of trembling broke after her shoulders and broke her back. She did not ask any questions. She did not want any explanation or history. She kissed Gobbo slowly on the mouth. She kissed his cheeks and his neck. She bathed him tirelessly with her kisses, as she had when he was born. Bambi and Fallon had gone away.